You said, ow, and I said, what? And you said, why do you keep wearing hats and wigs? And I said to you, have you actually seen my hair? I think it's self-explanatory. And then you said, ow, and I said, what? And you said, ow, we had the Tribit Maxsound Plus 2. No, we had the Tribit Thunderbox Plus 2. No, we had the Tribit Xsound Plus 2. It's had many different names. But from now on, until henceforth, it will always be known as the Tribit Xsound Plus, because apparently that's what they wanted to call it in the first place. And it's now number 2, aka version 4. Should we go over it again? Yeah, go on. All right then. Well, oh, by the way, a couple, at least one person, and backed up by other people, said you're becoming increasingly bizarre, and it might be putting off people because you actually got useful information. Hey ho, you ain't wrong. I am becoming increasingly bizarre. I think it's a good thing.
Hey, that's pretty good.
Let's see how far it goes. Where are we now? Well, so yeah, you said to me, ow, after you asked about me hats and the wigs, and you said, ow, and I said, what? And you said, well, you said it was all a bit V-shaped and all, it's not, it was on the edge, because it was. Get serious, all right, let's talk about it seriously. I reviewed, in my last video, the initial firmware, because Tribit are well known for Tribit responding to feedback and tinkering with the firmware to get it right. Very, very V-shaped. Old versions, very, very neutral, aka the reason we loved it. But as I said, I don't know what the total sales are. I do know that we're quite niche. Most of you watching me now will be sort of enthusiast stroke, maybe audiophile light. Do you remember when we had Windows Light? That didn't last very long, did it? But anyway, I digress. That's a good sign. Right, come on. Tribit Xsound Plus 2. This is a serious business. So it was very V-shaped in the initial, I think just a week ago when I did that review, but it seems like years in my life. And we were very disappointed. They must know what they're doing. Obviously, they give these speakers out and get feedback in before public release. But to those of us with sort of maturing ears, said, where's the mids for a start? That's the problem with V-shape. That's the problem with heavy V-shaped at lowish volumes. Mids are completely missing, so it tends to be quite muddy unless you're really adjusting that properly along the volume steps. Long story short, I didn't personally like it. I know other people didn't like that XBass default tuning. Too V-shaped, pushed too far to the. Got to remember, these, you know, in the normal hi-fi world, these drivers, these full-range drivers, we've got 2 of them, 2 full-range drivers and passive front and back. They're almost the size of a tweeter. You cannot be pushing the bass and the highs on a little tweeter like that, on a little full-range driver like that, and expecting everything to be rosy. Rosie's getting fed up with it, and her husband is going to shut the door on you. What can I do? So they pushed it too far. You can hear the overdrive. It's a pop sound, but hey, for maybe their target market, you know, it's a very budget speaker at the end of the day, and it's a little speaker. Those people probably will be hearing bass and happy. I don't know. We have to assume this. We've seen it before. But in my world, I can only talk about it from my perspective. I didn't like it at all. It didn't sound nice to the ears because A, the V-shaped, and B, pushed too far at the high end and the low end, and expecting these little drivers hardly bigger than a tweeter to be able to handle it all. Tribit said, we've heard what you say now. We've heard what your followers say. We realise, yes, there was a reason why you liked the Maxsound Plus in the first place, aka neutral, unusually neutral. Yes, as you push the volumes, 50, 60, 70% becomes bass light. I'm not saying it's the holy grail, but I'm saying, you know, for low-level listening, lowish volume, moderate volumes, unusually, almost uniquely, truly flat. I have to keep saying truly because I still see, you know, yeah. I go on Reddit and I see what, you know, they say are, this is the monitor-like speaker, blah, blah, aka. And it ain't. You're telling people wrong. Measure it. Just go out and measure it. That's all I ask you, to do some sort of real-world, hard-fact data measurements that can make an argument that they're flat, but they're not. They're normally thin, bass light, and pushed at the high end. Anyway, where were we? Something to do with the Maxsound Plus. It's getting even more bizarre than normal. I didn't know that was going to happen when I sat down. Maybe because I know this is going to be, it's supposed to be a shorter video, and I'm always trying to give not only value to you, value to me. Taking the time to set up my cameras and my lights, do the work behind it, and then I'm thinking, well, I could do that in 5 minutes. What is the point? What is the point? Again, I'm here to chill out, but share what I think is information enthusiasts will probably want. So I've completely lost the thread, but the point being, it was, what was I saying? We're talking about why we didn't like it and what Tribit said in response to that video. Directly in response to that, because they emailed me. They said, we've heard what you said, we agree, we realise, you know, Max, you did like that, a lot of you guys like that neutral sound. We want to give it to you back. I suggested they added it as a preset, and indeed, they added it as a preset. They said they were going to call it classic, and I said, that wasn't my idea, and I think that could be confusing. And what did they do? They didn't call it classic then, they called it Maxsound Traditional. But, hey, it was part of the firmware. So if you go on, so on my review, we was on 0.2.3. If you go in now, you'll see firmware update to 0.2.5. It doesn't say bugs fixed. So all the bugs now dead. There was a time, well, it was about a 2-3 year run where all we had were bugs everywhere. Was it something to do with the pandemic? And now it's all clean and everything is lovely, but because they're actually telling us what they're doing. Number one, to replace the classic, well actually it was called Classic Cool, replace the classical preset EQ with the Maxsound Traditional. Woohoo! We only asked for it a week ago. We've already got it. And we got it even before you're seeing this video. April the 2nd it went live, I think. Number two, optimize compatibility issues. I don't know what those are, but could it be something to do with the fact that it defaults to AAC? All my testing is done in AAC because it defaults to AAC, but know that I'm on Android. If you want it to default to SBC, so you have potentially less issues, then you'll have to turn off HD audio. So that was the firmware. So have they tinkered with the, because I know they responded heavily in a positive fashion to us saying we'd like a neutral EQ, thank you very much. Have they actually tinkered with the XBass, which we said was just pushed too far? It was, you know, there's smiley faces and there's like hands up, you know, oh, look how V-shaped I am. Am I going above the camera? I'm well above the camera. You can't see how high my V-shape has gone. Bodybuilding world, of course, that would be my back. I'm not a bodybuilder, you may have noticed. And here's the thing. Do you know what I did? I tested it before and after. These are not frequency response measurements. These are the spectrum analysis of the actual recorded track before and after. I do that now instead of the actual frequency response. I actually find it to be more consistent because they're so heavily DSP'd and they're so heavily dynamic tuning. I find real-world tracks to be the best way to measure the thing. I'm not saying I'm doing frequency response measurements that way, but I don't even bother with the frequency response now just to see if they've gone from A to B. I just play a track, record it before and after, nothing moves, nothing up my sleeves, there's extra blah, blah, blah. Has it changed? I find that's the most consistently accurate way to do those particular measurements. With measurement mics, it's so sensitive to any movement, any change in direction. It's a single mic, and it's far more sensitive than having real-world mics that simulate your ears to a certain extent. Much more forgiving in the, let's say, the way they smooth out the sound to relate to what you actually hear. So what's that? 3 days in, nothing's happened, but it's going to happen now. This is what I found before and after. XBass on before, XBass on after, 55% volume, identical. Bass off, same result. We moved to maximum volume. Bass off. I've got a mistake here saying bass on. These are both bass off and no change. And bass on, maximum volume, no change. So in terms of the firmware, it didn't update or change the default XBass on and XBass off EQ. We've just spent 3 years of my life to find out what nothing has changed. But that was with the default modes with bass on, bass off. They did not tinker. I'm trying to think of something that rhymes, but it's only stinker, and it's not a stinker. Depending on how you look at it. Nothing's changed in that. So it's all about bum-ba-da-bum-bum, Maxsound Traditional EQ in the preset, blah, blah, blah. And by the way, when I was messing about in the first video, and I found a bit in the app where you can change which EQs are hard set onto the speaker. So when you press your EQ button, it goes through 3 different EQs. Obviously, we've only got 2 lights here, a blue and a white. It would have been nice if there was a third colour, rather than just going off and you're not quite sure what's happening, a third colour for that third EQ. But as it stands, in default mode, light off would be no bass. Light off, bass off. White light is your XBass on, and blue light in default would be audiobook mode. That's completely unnecessary in my particular world. So I've added the Maxsound Plus Traditional EQ as a preset, and that's quite handy. And that's very nice, actually. As I said, the only thing I would have liked is a third colour, but hey ho, we would have liked the controls in white as well as like on their micro speaker. So what happened? Is it now identical? It's identical, apart from being different to, well, let's just compare it to version 2. Version 3, I'm saying, is the Thunderbox Plus. I never had that one. So is it now identical to the one we really, really loved? But I have to say, what was the downside of the speaker? It became very, very brittle and bright as you got up the volumes, because the bass completely drops off as you go up to louder volumes, making it not a great listen. So all we really wanted was to fill out that bass. We appear to have way more headroom now in the bass, so it should be happy days. Holy Grail has arrived. Lock up your daughters. No, don't do that. You can't even do that these days. Not that you'd ever want to, but that used to be an old saying. But never mind. I'm going to cut. Will I cut it out? I don't know. How much bottle have I got? How much credibility have I got to lose is the question. I don't know. I'm still working on it. Yeah. So what happened? Yeah. So first of all, I'm just going to do a comparison with XBass mode, which obviously I would never use bass off because it's too bass light, but then XBass on, it's too heavy bass. But hey, if I had to choose one, I would go for that one, but it would not be something I'm going to be listening to much. So that XBass on versus now the Maxsound EQ. It's going to be night and day and all the seasons in 1 week. So, loudness match, that means 60% when you're playing Maxsound Plus EQ, or as they say, traditional, and 55% for XBass on default mode. So loudness match to your ears, what you will hear is a less V-shaped sound. You can see we've reduced the bass peak, we've reduced the high-end peak, and the result of that is when you loudness match, you've got stronger mids and an overall more balanced sound. So what exactly have they done? Well, we have to overlay the actual curves. When we do that, we see what's happened here. It's a tweak. It's not a massive retuning, it's a tweak. We've got less bass, basically 300 hertz and down, and we've got less highs, 2 kilohertz and down. When you do that, you lose volume. And that means when you play both EQs to the same loudness to your ears, you end up with the pushed mids for the Maxsound Plus EQ traditional, as they say. For better or for worse, for richer or poorer, is that better? Yes. Do you know why? You know, because we don't have such a pushed high end and a pushed low end, but we do have a bit of a pushed high end and a bit of low end. So what's happened? Basically, all that's happened is, what have you seen? I've just told you, and I'm going to tell you again. All that's happened is they've reduced the high end and the low end. They've tweaked that. It's not like a real. It's not a retune to get it spot on exactly either flat or like the old Maxsound Plus at its lowest volumes. Obviously, we don't want it to mirror the rapid drop off in the bass. Obviously, they responded within days, a couple of days, I think, to what we said. They ain't going to spend, you know, a whole lifetime retuning it. But hey, that did improve it. That would be a reasonable default EQ for me to listen to. But is it the old Maxsound Plus? No. That's still less neutral than the old one was. It's still clearer. To me, you can pick out more details still on the old Maxsound Plus compared to the new one. But hey, that's in an AB. Without an AB, most people will probably not hear the difference. So if you listen to one day and the other one the next day, they may be the same to you. And as you push those volumes, the new one will hold on to its bass where the other one won't. You may still find it too V-shaped, but I think it's kind of a nice halfway house. You've got the benefit of not pushing the high end as much, going to help it to do the low end. We'll see. Big excursion for bass. Little highly frequent excursions for the high end. All at the same time is not easy. Although it's not really the way we talk about it, doing it at the same time. Sound is three-dimensional, it's particles and all that at the end of the day, but it's kind of like that. It's not as you hear it explained all the time that it's doing that at exactly the same moment. It doesn't work quite like that. However, it is kind of like that. Having said that, that helps. It helps in that it sounds a bit nicer now, the low end. It's not the pop sound, the overdrive that you will get in XBass mode. It's simply pushed to the limit in XBass mode, going for a certain mass market, aren't they? It is improved, but of course, it would be silly to leave it there, wouldn't it, without actually comparing it to the old version 2 Maxsound Plus. So direct comparison: Xsound Plus 2, Maxsound Plus upgraded version. So, in theory, Maxsound Traditional should be exactly the same as a Maxsound Plus. However, a big difference here is there's a big loudness difference in the actual volume steps, which means playing Maxsound EQ to match Maxsound Plus, you'd have to play it at 60% to match the Maxsound Plus at 40%. When you do that, you can see it's not the same tuning, but it's much closer now. We still have a more boosted bass, and we still have a more boosted high end, but is that really more boosted or is that more natural? If you overlay the original track, we can see now it is still a boost at that mid bass area. It's still a very big boost at the high end peak, and both Maxsound EQ and Maxsound Plus are tuned on the brighter side of neutral, but the Maxsound Plus just has less of a push in the high end and it has a weaker bass. Now, they both have a bit of a weakness around the 150 hertz mark. So, you know, we didn't really want to lose that, which we have done on the Maxsound EQ, which is now a little bit even bass-like compared to the Maxsound Plus, despite having more headroom around the 150 hertz mark. But it does now go bigger and deeper. I would still say the Maxsound Plus is the one on the more neutral side because it doesn't have such the high-end peak and mid-bass boost. It's stronger in the mids. We're talking when loudness matched. And the big difference still remains 500 hertz. It's quite a dip from being neutral for the Maxsound EQ compared to the actual Maxsound Plus, which is closer to neutral. 750 hertz, we've got a peak on the Maxsound Plus above neutral, which is matched by the Maxsound EQ having a dip at the same point. So if they wanted to make a more balanced EQ, certainly got the headroom to do that. And The leeway is still there to do that, but it is improved now from where we were, or compared to default XBass mode, which is very heavy V-shaped. When I say that, if we overlay everything, you can see just how much bigger. I mean, it's a massive push for a little speaker in that mid-bass area. The drivers are suffering from that. You can hear the overdrive, and that massive peak is again matched with a massive peak at the high end. And that means when loudness matched as they are here, XBass is very mids light. We still have a bit more sizzle than I would like if we're going to call it neutral. Bass tends to be more of a personal opinion, and it seems to be accepted. There's a hefty old range between which you could say that's overdone and not overdone. High end kind of within certain parameters again, but narrower. To me, that's too sizzly now to sound anywhere near natural in its Maxsound Traditional, but it's listenable. It's listenable. As I said, without an AB, you may be well happy. But doing a direct AB with them in front, the actual speakers at the same time, I hear it sounds more pleasant at the moderate to low volumes on the old Maxsound Plus. I can hear more details. It's slightly muddy now by comparison, but hey, as you got those volume steps, the new one will take over because you can play it at volumes satisfyingly that you couldn't play the old one. Is it perfect now? No, it's still a little bit too V-shaped. It's not been retuned to sound exactly flat, all like the old Maxsound. But hey, they've tinkered. They've done an easy tinker that actually is quite effective, but not for purists. If for most of us, we will hear the difference. But for a lot of other people who are not enthusiasts like us, they're not going to hear the difference, and hey, they may prefer XBass anyway. I would say they are both a decent listen. So I've hard coded the Maxsound Plus onto here. It's now my blue light. That's the old one. You see, they did have a second light. They've got the green light on the old one, which I forgot about, which is just so. There on the old one it's white and green, and on the new one it's white and blue. It's a shame we couldn't have got a third colour. It would be nice. You don't really want it just no light on. But anyway, that's kind of nitpicking. And do you know what? That's what we do. That's what we do. That's what we do. That's what we do. If you've got a nit, you've got to pick. So that was at 50%. We're going to push it to its balls out highest. We're going to push it to the limit because they've already done that with XBass with the V-shape mode. At all volume steps, they push that bass as high as they could go. It would sound like. And what happens is you hit maximum volume. As we said, we know the old Greenlight speaker, rapid roll-off, it becomes very tinny. It's not a speaker in any way to party to. Maybe, it bridges that gap now. So maximum volume, 100% volume test, go. If it's just about going as loud as you can, Xsound Plus 2 is the clear winner. Massively more headroom in terms of that bass. We've got the massive roll-off on the Maxsound Plus. It becomes very tinny at these high-ish volumes. Weirdly, the Xsound Plus Maxsound EQ actually has the weakest in terms of that high end till you hit the high end peak. But overall, I would say the Xsound Plus Maxsound EQ is the easiest one on the ear while still going pretty loud compared to the old Maxsound Plus. And in terms of the overall bass, 4 decibels more headroom now. For the Xsound Plus 2, lots of room to tinker. I just realised I could have put this on my head right at the beginning. And you would never know who I was. But you would have known I'm not Patrick Shambles. But that's another story. Ooh, goes the loudest. It's, well, we already knew that from the other video. It does go louder now. It's got more bass. It's got more headroom. In some ways, it's frustrating because there's a really nice tuning there to be had. You know, most of the distortion issues are from them simply pushing it too far. Now they've come down to their Maxsound Traditional. You can hear it's more pleasant. There's less artifacts going on, but you can see with some proper tinkering. Yes, I could have gone into the app now and tinkered a bit more with the EQ. Do you know what? You wanted me to get the video out. I haven't got 48 hours per day.
48 hours later.
I can't do it. I don't do this full time. I hardly do it part time, to be fair. I do what I can do, but along the line, I will do that because I think this will become now my go-to rather than, not of all speakers, for a low-level listen and reasonably neutral. You don't like neutral, Al, you like boom bass, blah, blah. I like warm side and neutral. Hands up, and by the way, that doesn't make me some sort of outsider. Even in the world of self-proclaimed or true audiophiles, have got the gear, can really claim to be proper audiophiles. Even on audiophile gear, it's accepted. You'll want to personalize the bass, probably the high end as well. But that bass is, and anyway, even tailor it to your room. But I think we've kind of moved on from this idea that you need a flat line, isn't it? I've seen a lot of the speakers out there that people are now saying, from those same people, that are not even pretending that it's flat. So we've moved on. I think I've made my point, to be quite honest. So I just wrote down, the problem is the old Maxsound Plus becomes a screech fest at these louder volumes. So Maxsound Traditional, job done as you go to louder volumes. Definitely, if you're someone who played that at louder volumes, you'll like that. And you'll go into the app and you will still bring down that high end and the low end a tiny bit more, just to your taste. As I said, for me, it's still too sizzly. I'll just bring down the high end when I get to a flattish EQ. And that's pretty much the story. Just to remind you, a reminder of, got to make it bizarre. Got to make it bizarre. The trolls will have nothing to talk about. So what's changed? I'll just talk about against version 2. I'm calling that's version 4. The upgraded was version 2. I'm seeing now about $70, 65 quid before discount on Amazon. As I sit down, early bird up to the 7th is still available. I'll put it in. I don't make anything on it. This is not something that I'm sponsored to say or anything like that. If you haven't noticed, this is probably not a sponsored video. I'm just putting it because they've said, here's a 40% off code, and I give it to you. Just know, I don't make anything. And even when they give me links to use, I don't. I'll use my own Amazon links, but I don't in any way go monetize in a partnership way with any other company or any other person, not even my own mum. It's still retailing about 50 quid, $50 for the other one, but with discount, it's cheaper now, Xsound Plus 2, which makes it a good buy if you just use the Maxsound Plus EQ and tinker with it a little bit. So on the old one, no multi-point functionality tool. On the new one, you can now support 2 devices. To change between devices, you'll have to pause one of them. It's got an upgraded battery, was 16.3 watt hours, now 17.52 watt hours, was SBC only, now SBC and AAC. As I said, it will default to AAC, you need to keep that in mind. Was Bluetooth 5, now Bluetooth 5.3. Both do stereo pairing, but you keep asking me, will they pair with each other? No, they won't. But the Xsound Plus will pair with another Xsound Plus 2 or with the Tribit Stormbox Flow. But they say less efficiently with the Stormbox Flow, so I don't know what actually happens. Does it explode? I don't know. Probably not. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. USB-C connections on both, so what's actually changed? We're talking about, yeah, so was 24 watts, now 30 watts. What hasn't changed is the charging input. 5 volts, 1.5 amps. That's quite slow. I know it's a little speaker at the end of the day, but I'm surprised that that's not at least 2 amps on that. I don't know what kind of magnet they use on the old one. I know they use a neodymium magnet on the new one, and maybe that's why it's now 590 grams and was 610 grams. So I know they say 580. I've weighed mine. It's 590. It's 20 grams lighter. The old one, IPX7, but didn't float. So not even with drivers up, it would sink. The new one will float, but hey, with the drivers down. Was 45mm drivers. They're saying 48mm drivers without taking the grill off. I can't really say if it's truly bigger, but possibly. It's hard to see through there. As I say, different ways of measuring it, and you could legitimately say one thing or the other. Both passive radiator. That's a surprise to me. Massively more headroom, bass-wise, on the Xsound Plus 2, but the passive is tuned in the same place, 77 Hertz. That was a surprise. They both have auxiliary inputs, and it was a big lag, I said, 160 milliseconds, even in auxiliary mode, but it's now 16 milliseconds, which is, you know, it's not zero, but it's pretty good. In my opinion, you'll probably never notice it. You're not likely to be DJing with it. And as far as, say, YouTube streaming goes, was 135 milliseconds in SBC, now 233 milliseconds in SBC. That ain't good, and neither is AAC at 240 milliseconds. There was no app support at all, and I now got app support, which is fantastic because we can do our firmware upgrades and we can tinker with the EQ in the app, which does work, although it's a little bit buggy. I noticed on this latest update for the app, there's a lag between when you go in now and you want to add an EQ and on top of, because you can have your own EQ or on top of one of their presets, and there's a lag and then it looks like it hasn't, and then you go back and it has. So it's a little bit buggy, by the way, if anyone else is watching from Tribit. I think I've been saying Tribit again, but it's Tribit apparently, but by the way, Tribit would have been BYTE. So for us, it's Tribit is really. And I just think Tribit harder. So I think we're better off calling it Tribit, and I may just stick with Tribit because I think that's how I want to market it. What does it matter? No. Does anyone care? Sometimes Tribit seems to respond, but I guess they respond to everybody. Anyway, they're that sort of company. I guess it means they're a smaller company. They're quite responsive. There is another company. If you remember his pet name, I won't say it in this video. If you remember his pet name and that company, not quite as responsive. In fact, not responsive at all. As in, yeah, we'll just blank it. But anyway, won't go into that. You just did out, and I know I may actually cut that out at the end. I may cut that out and leave that bit in, and you wonder what I was cutting out, and you've missed the whole story. Anyway, so not bad. I think that was half an hour. See what it is when it actually goes live. And I think we're done. So for the 90% that come to the end of the video to hear the one line of conclusion, the conclusion is, that's all she wrote. I fooled you. I fooled the world. You'll have to watch the video. Can I get away with that? Should I really give a conclusion? Maybe I'll just change the timestamp so they don't get this bit. The conclusion is, I think that was a worthwhile update. It's not the Maxsound Plus EQ, but it's not a million miles from it. And the fact that it's now better at louder volumes than the old Maxsound Plus where you lost the bass. I think now, you know, there's enough there to say I may just be picking that up rather than that after a little bit of tinkering with the EQ in the app. I think it's close enough now. As I said, only really on a direct AV, you probably don't even get that in the clips. Only listen to the action drivers with the speakers like that together. You're really hearing the fact that the old one still has, there is more detail there. There's more going on to your ears. It's a little bit muddy by comparison, but it's only by a small amount. But I'm just saying those are still the definite differences, but that's probably still just about the tuning. That's pretty much a wrap. Covered everything except for that day I bunked off school when I was 8 years old. Won't get into that. Only just recovering. Right. See you in the next video. See what I said? See you in the next video. That's not bizarre behaviour, is it, by the way? That's just saying, please support me. But see you in the next video, because I'm assuming you'll be there, because I can see most of you watching now were in that last video. Let's see how far we can get. Let's see how bizarre we can get without getting taken off the air. Because that does happen. I think you need to be aware that, I think, you know, YouTube... I'm waffling way past where why is that? Because for me, this is like a short, isn't it? I've actually only been sitting down for half an hour. That's fantastic. But did we get our money's worth? The trolls have less to go on. Actually, I think I gave quite a bit there. That was a bit bizarrish, wasn't it? Nah, whatever. It is what it is. Ain't what it ain't. My motto. We'll meet again.
What the was that? It comes from
Chainer.
My speaker's got deep bass, balanced mids, and a bright high.
Yes, mine sounds exactly the same.